Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Tian Lu with you on this Friday, May the 8th, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, Iran and the United States have exchanged fire, but the US president says their ceasefire still holds. The French Senate has approved a draft law to return illicitly acquired cultural property a day after the National Assembly passed the bill. And starting Monday, Brazil will waive visa requirements for Chinese citizens for the rest of the year. In business, China's finance ministry allocates nearly 46 billion yuan to support preschool education. In sports, Aston Villa reaches the Europa League final after a 44-year wait. In culture and entertainment, pop superstar Shakira has unveiled the official song for the World Cup. Now checking today's top stories. Iran says the United States has violated the ceasefire by attacking 2 Iranian vessels near the Strait of Hormuz and launching airstrikes on civilian areas. Tehran said it responded with missile and drone strikes against U.S. destroyers, causing significant damage and forcing them to retreat. Sepeh Sarami reports from Tehran.
Everything started at the late hours of Thursday, May 7th. There were some reports of attacks in southern Iran, Bandar Abbas port, and also Qeshm Island. Those reports were confirmed by semi-official media outlets like Fars and Mehr and Tasnim news agencies. Many have forgotten about the memorandum of understanding that was supposed to settle the disputes at least temporarily. Now, two sides, the U.S. and Iran, are accusing each other of violating the ceasefire. The commander-in-chief of the army of Iran said in response to the enemy's provocation in the Persian Gulf, they will regret it. The Iranian General of Staff, Khatam al-Anbiya's central headquarters, issued a statement. He said the Iranian armed forces immediately retaliated by attacking U.S. military vessels east of the Strait of Hormuz and south of the port of Chabahar, inflicting significant damage on them. The U.S. violated ceasefire by targeting an Iranian oil tanker ship and another ship entering the Strait of Hormuz. On the other side, we have U.S. officials who are claiming that everything they did was defensive. So the ceasefire was already fragile, and now we have witnessed exchange of fire in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. I also saw the 1,000 booms in the skies of Tehran, so they were engaging maybe drones, maybe some objects in the skies of Tehran. So, as I said, the ceasefire is volatile more than ever.
That was Sepeh Sarami on renewed tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. Central Command said American forces targeted Iranian military facilities, including missile and drone launch sites. President Donald Trump said the ceasefire with Iran still holds, urging Tehran to sign a deal. He said no damage was done to U.S. destroyers that transited out of the Strait of Hormuz and threatens more strikes if Tehran fails to sign the agreement. Walt Morris has more from Washington.
U.S. President Donald Trump has said repeatedly that Iran wants to make a deal and he thinks they're close. This week, the White House submitted a one-page memo that would formally end the conflict and prevent more fighting. Administration officials say the latest proposal is a temporary agreement. According to Reuters, the framework of the deal would play out in 3 stages by formally ending the war, reopening the Strait of Hormuz, and launching a 30-day window for negotiations on a broader agreement. Tehran and Washington have reportedly scaled back their goals of a more permanent and comprehensive peace deal. The latest proposal doesn't address the key issues of Iran's nuclear program and the future of its highly enriched uranium. However, the partial deal could end the standoff over the strait. Mediators in Pakistan say they remain optimistic and they expect an agreement sooner rather than later. and that deal would bring much-needed relief to thousands of sailors who are currently stranded in the Persian Gulf. Iran effectively seized control of the Strait of Hormuz when the conflict began in February. About 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas travel through the waterway, and the U.S. military says more than 1,500 ships from 87 countries are now stuck. In response to the closure, the U.S. imposed a naval blockade on Iranian ports just days after U.S. Central Command launched Project Freedom to escort stranded vessels through the strait. Trump announced he was putting it on pause. The U.S. Navy successfully guided 2 ships through the strait earlier this week. In addition to driving up energy costs, experts say the standoff could drive up food prices because of blocked fertilizer shipments. The UN says 45 million people in Asia and Africa could go hungry if the strait does not open soon.
That was Walter Morris in Washington. Rising tensions in the Middle East are taking a heavy toll on the world's largest beef exporter. Brazil's beef exports to the region have fallen for 2 straight months, causing major losses across the agricultural sector. Lei Xiangping reports.
Brazil's beef shipments to the Middle East dropped by more than 20% in March compared with the previous month. Exports to several key markets were hit especially hard. Shipments to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Jordan each fell by around 50%. Roberto Perosa, chairman of Brazil's Beef Exporters Association, says suspended shipping routes and soaring freight costs have severely disrupted trade.
Para o Oriente Médio, como você me perguntou, nós exportamos.
Brazil's meat exports to the Middle East usually account for around 10% of total exports, and at times can reach 15%. But geopolitical tensions have had a major impact, especially on shipping routes. Some routes were suspended, while freight costs to the region rose to 3 times the normal level. Every period of instability brings losses across the supply chain and can even affect the stability of meat supplies in those markets.
Perosa says tensions eased slightly in April, but exports to the region continued to decline. The industry is now working to reopen and diversify shipping routes.
Sim, houve uma queda inicial grande, como você disse.
At the start of the conflict, exports fell sharply, but over time the situation has gradually improved. In April, the decline narrowed to around 10%, and we expect the trade flows to recover soon. New shipping routes are already being used to avoid the Strait of Hormuz. Saudi Arabia's Jeddah port is operating normally, and other routes, including the Suez Canal, are also handling cargo. Brazilian beef is now reaching the Middle East through multiple channels.
Beef is not the only sector under pressure. Brazil's chicken exports to the Middle East fell by 18.5% in March. Experts estimate total losses that month exceeded $800 million, including exports of soybeans, corn, beef, and chicken. Perosa says Brazil's beef industry is closely monitoring developments and hopes exports to the region will recover as soon as possible. For the Beijing Hour, this is Lei Xiangping in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
The war against Iran has caused jet fuel costs to skyrocket. Data from the U.S. Transportation Department shows major carriers spent nearly $2 billion more on fuel in March than in February. Tony Waterman has more.
$5 billion. That is how much U.S. airlines paid on jet fuel in March, a whopping 56% jump from what they spent to fill up their tanks in February. The Strait of Hormuz is a vital waterway for global energy, but it has effectively been closed now for 10 weeks. And this has halted the flow of not just jet fuel, but also the raw crude oil sent to refineries to produce jet fuel. So this has really been a double whammy for prices, which have roughly doubled since the conflict started. Jet fuel is typically an airline's second biggest expense behind labor. So even small movements in prices can have an outsized impact on the bottom line. And this is putting financial pressure on carriers across the globe, especially low-cost airlines that already run on incredibly thin margins. Here in the United States, Spirit Airlines folded just last week. The soaring jet fuel prices proving to be the final decisive factor for the ultra-low-cost carrier, which was trying to restructure its way out of bankruptcy. And there are concerns that other vulnerable airlines may hit some turbulence as well. Other carriers, including major airlines like Delta, United, Southwest, American, they are trying to shore up their balance sheets by cutting routes, raising bag fees, and raising ticket prices, essentially passing some of the costs along to consumers. According to Airlines Reporting Corps, which tracks ticket prices, the cost of a domestic round-trip fare in the U.S. jumped 21% in March from a year earlier.
Now was Tony Waterman on passengers bearing the brunt of the energy crisis. Switzerland's chocolate industry is facing mounting pressure from soaring production and transport costs, as well as supply disruptions linked to the conflict in the Middle East. At artisanal chocolate maker Casa Nobile, producers say maintaining quality remains essential despite rising expenses. Co-owner Fabian Sanger says the company focuses on premium ingredients and craftsmanship to stay competitive.
For me, luxury is a word as you cannot buy that one, but pricing is also an important thing, but it's not that you buy a Ferrari, for example. Is this luxury? For one guy, it's not luxury. You can buy the 2 Ferraris. But for me, it's luxury. You eat it, for us, you eat it, the chocolate, and say, oh, that's emotion. That's a luxury.
Industry group Choco Suez says raw materials still account for more than half of chocolate production costs. Director Roger Worley says manufacturers have been forced to raise prices while exports and domestic consumption have declined.
The largest part of costs is really raw material costs, so cocoa, milk, sugar, etc. And it's more than half of the costs typically of a chocolate. And therefore we saw the price increases due to the high cocoa prices last year. And what will happen is now that we can't decrease it due to price decreases in cocoa, because now we've got the increases in logistics and transport costs.
Swiss chocolate sales fell nearly 8% last year as consumers traded down to cheaper imported products. Coming up, the French Senate has approved a draft law to return illicitly acquired cultural property a day after the National Assembly passed a bill.
You've been listening to programs from CGTN Radio.
CGTN Radio.
We invite you to visit us online for more audio, pictures, and in-depth reports. At radio.cgtn.com, you can access a wide range of programs and find your favorite news, talk, features, entertainment shows, and podcasts. Hear the difference with CGTN Radio.
Now it's 12 minutes past the hour. The French Senate has approved a draft law on the restitution of cultural property acquired through illicit appropriation. The upper house of Parliament passed a bill a day after the revised legislation cleared the National Assembly. The bill seeks to establish a clearer and simpler legal framework for returning cultural assets acquired by France through illicit means, including looting, theft, and sales conducted under coercion. It applies to cultural property acquired between 1815 and 1972, excluding military items and certain archaeological objects. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu welcomed the draft law, saying it is not intended to rewrite history but allows the country to take responsibility for returning improperly acquired cultural property. After the bill's approval at the National Assembly on Wednesday, China said it appreciates France's sense of responsibility and expressed readiness at making joint efforts to continue promoting the protection and return of lost cultural relics through dialogue and cooperation. Countries worldwide are working to trace passengers who disembarked the hantavirus-stricken cruise ship before the virus was detected. The World Health Organization has confirmed 5 cases and 3 suspected infections. It identified the strain as the Andes virus, which is capable of limited human-to-human transmission. The MV Honduras is now traveling toward the Canary Islands with about 150 people on board and could arrive within a few days. None of the passengers currently have any symptoms. Ken Brown tells us about preparations for the vessel's arrival.
Port operators and staff in the south of Tenerife at the Granadilla de Abona port, where the ship is expected to arrive in the next few days. Sunday midday is what we're hearing, but they say that they're going to block the ship from docking there, citing a lack of information. And maybe because of that, we've also heard a press conference from Virginia Barcone. She is the Secretary General of Civil Protections. She, along with the rest of the Spanish central government, are trying to calm some of the fears on the Canary Islands. They're trying to get information out there. They are saying that the boat will not actually dock directly at the port, but will rather anchor nearby. The strict tests and protocols that are going to be in place were being described. Barcone said there will be zero contact between the passengers and the local population. People who arrive on that ship will be tested, and they will await for a flight to take them home from the nearby airport. They will not be able to go anywhere else but that airport. People will be disembarking from the ship in small numbers. About 5 per small boat is what we're hearing. Now, there are people from many different nations on the ship, 23 different nations when you include the many crew members, 14 people from Spain. Because of the long incubation time of this hantavirus, when they arrive home, they will also likely face a period of quarantine. For example, we've heard the British government asking their nationals to quarantine for some 45 days. Now, we also heard from Pedro Gullón. He's the Public Health Director. He said that the boat will be disinfected. The crew will not disembark in Spain, but are likely to go back to the Netherlands, where the ship is from, where the company who owns that ship operates.
That was Ken Brown in Madrid on measures to receive the hantavirus-linked cruise ship. US President Donald Trump says the meeting with his Brazilian counterpart on trade and tariffs went very well. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said he was very satisfied with the talks at the White House. Trump imposed a 50% tariff on Brazil in July, but the US Supreme Court later invalidated the measure. Nick Harper reports.
There was the potential for this meeting to go very wrong, and that might be the reason why President Lula da Silva decided not to allow press into the meeting. He instead gave his own solo press conference at the Brazilian embassy. He said it was an important meeting for both countries. Donald Trump posted on social media saying that the meeting went very well. Donald Trump even called President Lula da Silva very dynamic. Now, there's no word of any new deals on tariffs, but President Lula made it clear that his country is in a strong global position. It's in a position to cut deals, even if it's not with the United States. Then it has been able to do so with plenty of other countries.
Everyone started to see the importance of Latin America in today's world. That's why we closed a deal between the EU and Mercosur with Singapore, Japan, and we want to close a deal between Mercosur and Canada, because this is how we defend a multilateral world against the unilateralism of Trump's tariffs.
And there were a couple of areas of cooperation that were discussed. One was organised crime. The United States is threatening to designate 2 gangs in Brazil as terrorist organisations, and that would give the US the ability to carry out military operations in Brazil in the same way that it's done against Venezuela. Now, that's something that Brazil would rather did not happen, and instead it's looking for cooperation in ways to tackle organised crime together. President Lula says that he told President Trump he was willing to establish a working group with other Latin American countries to jointly tackle organised crime. And the other area of cooperation is critical minerals. It's a huge bargaining chip for Brazil because of its huge reserves of minerals that the United States wants, its potential leverage to try and reduce its tariffs. And we're told that President Lula told President Trump he was willing to share Brazil's minerals with the United States, but he would want to see investment in Brazil if he were to give the minerals over to Washington.
That was Nick Harper on potential new trade between the US and Brazil. The U.S. Court of International Trade has ruled that President Donald Trump's new global tariff policy is illegal, invalidating the 10% tariff imposed on most imports into the United States. The court said Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 can only be used in cases involving large and serious balance of payments deficits, which it found did not apply. The Trump administration introduced the tariffs earlier this year after the Supreme Court blocked a previous tariff plan. A coalition of 24 U.S. states filed legal challenges against the measure in March. Coming up, starting Monday, Brazil will waive visa requirements for Chinese citizens for the rest of the year.
Discover the realities and responses to our changing climate with Climate Watch. Uncover critical issues such as the Masai Mara's disrupted wildebeest migration and the drop in the Panama Canal's water levels. Delve into solutions for a sustainable future. Tune in to Climate Watch on your favorite podcast platform. Become more eco-conscious and take action to protect our planet.
Now it's 20 minutes past the hour. Brazil will introduce a visa-free entry policy for Chinese citizens starting on Monday. The measure applies to ordinary passport holders traveling for tourism, business, transit, or participation in artistic or sporting activities. The official Brazilian Gazette says the visa waiver allows stays of up to 30 days and will remain in effect until the end of the year. China's visa exemption policy has included Brazilian nationals since June 1, 2025, valid for 1 year, and was later extended until the end of this year. Brazilian citizens holding ordinary passports may enter China visa-free for no more than 30 days. China's Tianzhou-10 cargo spacecraft has arrived at the launch area at Wenchang Space Launch Site in Hainan Province. Inspections and joint tests are underway ahead of the liftoff in the coming days. Tianzhou-10 will deliver supplies, spacesuits, maintenance equipment, propellant, and scientific payloads to China's space station. The mission will also dispose of orbital waste during re-entry and test of a new rendezvous and docking technology for the first time. China's 15th five-year plan for economic and social development highlights efforts to attract foreign investment and encourage reinvestment. Despite global uncertainties, some multinational companies are continuing to expand their presence in the country. One is a Dutch floriculture company that launched a new high-tech greenhouse in southwest China, a move that reflects its long-term confidence in the Chinese market. Yang Jinghao has more.
I'm inside an anthrax greenhouse in Songming County in southwest China's Yunnan province, where these distinctive blooms reflect the Dutch company's two-decade presence and growth in China. Anthura established its production base in Yunnan in 2006, joined by the region's favorable climate and improving business environment.
We really started small with only 1 hectare greenhouse, and over the years we expanded, and now our total area is 6 hectares.
That expansion now reaches a new milestone, a high-tech greenhouse covering 2.7 hectares. With an investment of around $73 million, the facility features advanced climate control systems, automated irrigation, and intelligent logistics.
We want to develop more towards a hub in Asia. So from Kunming, we will also do more export to nearby countries, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, Korea. So also that requires production capacity.
In recent years, besides Anthura, companies like Driscoll's, a global berry producer, and Diageo, one of the world's largest spirits companies, have also expanded their presence in Yunnan with a strong government support.
Last year, we organized a series of policy briefings for foreign-invested agricultural enterprises, covering legal protection, new plant varieties, tax incentives for reinvestment, and measures to stabilize foreign trade.
China's development blueprint for the next 5 years emphasizes improving the business environment for foreign investment and encouraging reinvestment, a move expected to lead to more concrete cooperation.
We are very important trading partners, but there are many other areas for cooperation. I mentioned water and water management. I mentioned the maritime sector, where we are both very strong. I would say everything regarding the green transition, where you are very strong, where China is plays a leading role.
Businesses share such optimism on the ground.
We still have possibilities to expand further.
For companies like Anthura, China is not just a place to produce, but also a market to grow and a partner for long-term development.
That was Yang Junhao reporting from Yunnan province. China's agricultural modernization is hitting the fast track. Official data shows that science and technology has contributed more than 64% to the country's agricultural growth. From faster crop breeding to environmentally friendly pesticides, a new wave of innovation is helping secure the nation's food supply while reducing environmental impact. Yimin has more.
How to feed 1.4 billion people on a changing planet? The answer is being written inside China's high-tech laboratories, and it's happening at double speed. From gene scissors that cut years of breeding cycles to smart pesticides that only target the bad bugs, science now drives over 64% of China's agricultural growth. It's a quiet revolution where the test tube meets the tractor. The race for the super seed starts in a deep freeze. At minus 80 degrees Celsius, scientists store gene scissors. Think of them as a biological delete key used to remove weak traits and boost a plant's natural strength. By editing DNA directly, researchers have cut the time needed to develop new crop varieties in half. But then comes the mass exam, testing millions of samples to find the winner.
This tiny plate has 384 holes, each holding a different plant's DNA. Our machines can scan more than 100 plates a day. That means over 40,000 samples can be tested daily, greatly speeding up the screening process.
The final test happens inside smart shipping containers. By controlling the light and temperature, scientists can grow 4 harvests of soybeans in a single year, completely ignoring the seasons. It's like moving a tropical farm into a laboratory. But the great seed still needs protection. Traditional pesticides are like carpet bombing. They kill everything, including the good bugs. Now China has developed a smart bomb, RNA pesticides. They are non-toxic, eco-friendly, and incredibly precise.
Take the brown planthopper, a major pest for rice. It feeds by piercing rice stems and absorbing nutrients. Our RNA design targets this feeding mechanism, preventing the insect from opening its mouth parts, eventually starving it.
Today, 95% of crops grown in China comes from seeds developed at home. Behind every breakthrough are thousands of repetitive tasks. Scientists picking up tiny seeds or studying pests for hours on end. Their goal is simple: to make sure the food bowl of the future is filled with smarter, stronger, and greener crops.
That was Yimin reporting. The United Nations has released a new report calling for countries to measure progress using indicators beyond gross domestic product or GDP. The report proposes a global dashboard that includes well-being, equality, inclusion, and environmental sustainability alongside economic output. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said relying only on GDP creates an incomplete picture of progress.
The report we launch here today is a landmark step in correcting a long-standing blind spot in measuring progress, the over-reliance on gross domestic product. The report and its detailed recommendations are the result of focused work by a high-level expert group.
The UN developed the recommendations under its Pact for the Future. Member states will discuss them at the General Assembly as part of broader efforts to reshape how development is measured. Now it's 29 minutes past the hour, checking the forecast before the break. Beijing will be cloudy with a low of 14 and a high of 28 on Saturday. Shanghai will be overcast tonight and tomorrow with a low of 14 and a high of 24. Chongqing will see light rain with a low of 19 tonight. Tomorrow cloudy with a high of 23. Nanchang will be overcast with a low of 16 tonight. Tomorrow cloudy with a high of 22. Lhasa will see light rain with a low of 4 tonight. Tomorrow overcast with a high of 13. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad is down to 22 this evening. Saturday will be cloudy and 37. Vientiane will see moderate rain through tomorrow. The low is 23 and it's up to 28 degrees Celsius. Now it's time for a short break. So far this hour, Iran and the United States have exchanged fire, but the US president says their ceasefire still holds. The French Senate has approved a draft law to return illicitly acquired cultural property a day after the National Assembly passed the bill. Tian Lu with you. Stay with here on the Beijing Hour.
From the refreshing cup of tea that starts your morning to the paper that you write on, the roots of many familiar parts of modern life can be traced back to ancient ideas. Join us on Made in Ancient China and discover how ideas born millennia ago became some of the world's greatest treasures. Made in Ancient China brings you stories of human ambition, inspiration, and connection. Now available on all major podcast platforms.
Shh, listen up. Can you hear the heartbeat of our world? It's vibrant and pulsating with the essence of life itself. From the stem of trees to the gurgle of rivers. From the silent strength of mountains to the icy whispers of glaciers. Even the solid ground beneath our feet. Right there, in the midst of all, beats the heart of humanity. What if those other heartbeats were to stop? Would ours keep on ticking?
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Tian Lu with you on this Friday. Still to come. In business, China's finance ministry allocates nearly 46 billion yuan to support preschool education. In sports, Aston Villa reaches the Europa League final after a 44-year wait. In culture and entertainment, pop superstar Shakira has unveiled the official song for the World Cup. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @cgtnradio. But first, checking today's headlines. Defense officials, experts, scholars, and media representatives from more than 40 countries and international organizations are discussing global security governance at the Beijing Xiangshan Forum Navigator meeting. It aims to provide an open, inclusive, and equal platform for international security dialogue. Talks center on international order and the international rule of law, new security challenges in the Asia-Pacific, responsibility for safeguarding international common security, and risk control in the military application of emerging technologies. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations has rejected a US-backed draft resolution at the Security Council condemning Iran's actions in the Strait of Hormuz. Amir Said Iravani called the proposal politically motivated and accused Washington of using the issue to justify unlawful actions.
Iran's position is clear. The only viable solution in the Strait of Hormuz is a permanent end to the war, the lifting of maritime blockade, and the restoration of normal passage. Instead, the US is pushing a flawed, politically motivated draft resolution under the pretext of freedom of navigation to advance its political agenda and legitimize unlawful actions, not to resolve the crisis.
He also urged the United States to end what he described as its war against Iran. The comments came as reports emerged that Iran is establishing a new government agency to regulate and tax vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz. The move has raised fresh concerns over international shipping, with hundreds of commercial vessels reportedly still unable to leave the Persian Gulf. Israel and Lebanon will hold a third round of direct talks in Washington next week as efforts continue to preserve a fragile ceasefire between the two sides. U.S. State Department officials say the Israeli and Lebanese ambassadors to the United States will meet face-to-face next Thursday and Friday. The talks are part of U.S.-brokered efforts aiming to secure a lasting ceasefire and a possible peace agreement. The World Health Organization says the public health risk from a hantavirus outbreak aboard an Atlantic cruise ship remains low. Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus says 8 cases have been reported, including 3 deaths, with 5 confirmed as the Andes virus, a strain capable of limited human-to-human transmission.
Our priorities are to ensure the affected patients receive care, that the remaining passengers on the ship are kept safe and treated with dignity, and to prevent any further spread of the virus.
He says no other passengers or crew are currently showing symptoms, and the ship is heading to the Canary Islands with WHO and European health experts on board. Epidemiologist Maria van Kerkhove says the virus spreads very differently from COVID-19.
This is not COVID. This is not influenza. It spreads very, very differently. So there are different precautions that people are taking. So we are supporting the ship's operators in the mitigation measures that they are putting on board.
She says passengers have been confined to cabins, rooms are being disinfected, and masks are required as a precaution. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres is calling for stronger global cooperation to protect migrants. Speaking at the International Migration Review Forum, Guterres warned that migration is increasingly being shaped by fear and misinformation.
Migration is an integral part of the human story, an activity as old as humanity itself. It has helped build societies, grow economies, and spur innovation across the world. Yet today, migration is being distorted by fear and misinformation. Migrants are scapegoated for political gain, dehumanized in public discourse, and denied their rights and dignity.
He urged governments to improve protections for people in distress, strengthen action against human trafficking networks, and support safe and orderly migration. Guterres also renewed support for the Global Compact for Migration, saying no country can manage migration challenges alone. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in business, China's Finance Ministry allocates nearly 46 billion yuan to support preschool education.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
Now 37 minutes past the hour, turning to business. Stock markets on the Chinese mainland closed flat or lower on Friday. The Shanghai Composite remained unchanged. The Shenzhen Component lost 0.5%. Aerospace, equipment and home appliance shares were among the top gainers. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index was down almost 0.9%. Japan's Nikkei declined nearly 0.2%. China's Finance Ministry has allocated 45.8 billion yuan, or around $6.7 billion to support preschool education. That's an increase of nearly 12.6 billion yuan from the previous year. According to the ministry, the funds will help local governments carry out policies that waive childcare and education fees for preschool children and address shortages in access to affordable preschool resources. The money will also be used to improve the quality of early childhood education and strengthen financial aid for children from low-income families. The ministry says it will work with the Education Ministry to ensure the proper use of central subsidies and local funds, especially when it comes to fee waivers. Officials add that efforts will also be made to expand access to high-quality preschool programs and steadily raise the overall standards of kindergarten operations. Starting from the autumn semester of 2025, fees for children in their first year of preschool at public kindergartens have been waived. Families with children enrolled in private kindergartens have also received corresponding reductions. So far, these policies have benefited more than 14 million children and reduced household education costs by over 20 billion yuan. International institutions are showing growing confidence in China's economy. Global ratings agency Moody's has affirmed the country's sovereign credit rating at A1 and upgraded the outlook from negative to stable. The move signals fiscal resilience and effective debt management despite domestic and global challenges. Germany's Deutsche Bank has raised its 2026 GDP growth forecast for China from 4.5% to 4.9%, citing strong first quarter growth in sustained export momentum. The Asian Development Bank has also revised up China's growth forecast by 0.3 points to 4.6% this year. The bank cited strength in China's exports and high-tech sectors. China's bicycle sector registered steady production growth in 2025, with total output hitting nearly 111 million units, up 11.3% on a yearly basis. The China Bicycle Association says the industry saw its operating revenue rise 9% last year, with profits registering a sharp increase. Exports of bicycles reached nearly 49 million, up 2.4%, maintaining steady growth momentum. Exports of bicycle components exceeded $3.6 billion, jumping 10.6% from the previous year. Over 100 bicycle races took place across the country in 2025, up 23% from the previous year, with over 1 million participants. The number of amateur cycling clubs have exceeded 80,000, driving rapid expansion of the cycling equipment market. China has rolled out the electric bicycle trading policy and implemented the new mandatory national safety standards for electric bicycles. Over 12.5 million electric bicycles were sold via the trading policy last year, a ninefold increase from 2024. Shanghai's largest intelligent agricultural factory can grow, pick, and pack strawberries all year round. It's highly efficient and environmentally sustainable. The factory's capacity can fill the domestic supply gap, which typically runs from May to November. Lei Shiran has more.
Strawberries are inherently sensitive to heat and intolerant of high temperatures and drought, making them a seasonal fruit available only from November to May. This newly established intelligent cultivation facility, strawberries are now available year-round.
The Baihe Digital Smart Strawberry Plant Factory project, planned, approved, and built within a single year, sits right in the heart of the Baihe cluster, which is one of 12 modern agricultural zones planned by the city of Shanghai.
This project occupies an area of 12,000 square meters, with a smart glass greenhouse covering 3,456 square meters. Officially operational in January 2026, it focuses on high-tech cultivation, digitally intelligent management, and the integration of the entire industry.
This independently developed strawberry AI planting decision system enables real-time data collection on temperature, light, water, air, nutrients, and plant growth status. Strawberry plants receive precisely controlled illumination for 10 to 12 hours per day, resulting in a significant improvement in growth efficiency.
This project employs an 8-layer vertical system, which saves on arable land, makes efficient use of space, and has a production capacity more than 15 times that of traditional agriculture. Once fully operational, it will produce 50 tons of high-quality strawberries annually, with an annual output value of approximately 10 million yuan.
At present, the factory has grown several strawberry varieties, including Xiangye, Fenyu, and Baihe Liren. The first batch of fresh strawberries is expected to be available for sale in late to mid-June of this year.
We have adopted a model characterized by government guidance, enterprise leadership, and market-oriented operation. Current market demand is substantial, and we are busy filling pre-orders, with products having already been pre-purchased by several high-end distribution channels.
As the strawberry capital of China, Baihe Town has more than 3.8 square kilometers of growing space, with an annual output of nearly 10,000 tons. A third of domestically grown strawberries available in Shanghai originate from this town. There are 4 smart plant factories that have been completed or under construction in Shanghai. The official plan is at least 10 smart greenhouses and plant factories established across the city by the end of 2028.
That was Lei Shiran reporting. China has completed the world's first methanol dual-fuel container ship, marking a major milestone in green shipbuilding for ultra-large vessels. The OOCL Wisdom stretches nearly 400 meters long and over 60 meters wide. It can hold over 24,000 standard containers with a dead weight of 225,000 metric tons. Wang Zhigang is a research and development designer at COSCO Shipping Heavy Industry Company. He explains the vessel's cutting-edge capabilities and how it is well equipped to traverse the globe.
It uses the world's largest methanol dual-fuel supply system, equipped with an ultra-large methanol fuel tank with a capacity of 14,300 cubic meters. This gives the ship a cruising range of 15,000 nautical miles, enough to complete a single voyage from Asia to the far reaches of Europe.
The ship's core breakthrough lies in its world-leading dual-fuel power system, which can flexibly switch between methanol and conventional fuel to meet the urgent demand for decarbonization in the global shipping industry. The lingering Middle East tensions could affect Europe's car sector as more drivers go electric. Oil prices have surged, forcing car owners to weigh their options. Michael Marilla has more.
The war in Iran could take European drivers in a new direction. The conflict has taken a massive human toll, with thousands losing their lives. Now, the economic impact is becoming clearer. New data points to a surge in demand for electric vehicles, or EVs, in Europe. Sales figures for March were 51% higher than the same period last year. Demand spiked just after the United States attacked Iran, a move that pushed oil prices 50% higher in just 3 weeks. Markets were concerned about the possibility of attacks in the Strait of Hormuz, off Iran's southern coast. Nearly 25% of the world's seaborne oil trade passes through the strait each year. European drivers are doing the math, and for some, the answer is electric. So where are these EVs coming from? Well, 1 out of every 2 is built in Germany. But the European EV sector is not entirely European. In 2023, more than 20% of Europe's EVs were made in China. And here's the twist. Most of them were not Chinese brands. In fact, 6 out of 10 were made for automakers based outside China. The country's car sector has reliable infrastructure and strong supply chains. Labor is highly skilled and relatively cheap. That's made it attractive to foreign EV makers. But when it comes to foreign consumers, there's still some way to go. Chinese EV maker Zeekr ran a survey in 2025. Just 40% of Europeans said premium Chinese brands were as good as those from Europe or the US. But 50% said the Chinese models offered value for money. And that's significant because Chinese EVs are often cheaper than those in the West. He found that BYD's Seal was 25% cheaper than similar cars made by European firms. And that brings us back to the war in Iran. China's EV sector may help curb the cost, offering relatively cheap cars that don't rely on fuel. But first, European consumers may need to change their mindset when it comes to products made in China.
That was Michael Marilla reporting. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, Aston Villa reaches the Europa League final after a 44-year wait.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
Now it's 48 minutes past the hour. Turning to sports, here's Yang Guang.
Thank you, Tianlu. We kick off with football. Aston Villa delivered a near-perfect performance, thrashing Nottingham Forest 4-0 and 4-1 on aggregate to reach the Europa League final. The club last appeared in the European final in 1982 when they defeated Bayern Munich 1-0 to lift one of the greatest trophies in their history. Manager Unai Emery praised the team's mindset.
Want to lose, want to win.
but I accepted always my things being successful or not during the process. And of course, always looking forward in every situation is very important. And now, when we can feel, of course, so happy and so proud of everything we are doing, now as well getting balance, because the final is still to play and 50-50 possibilities for both teams.
After trailing 1-0 from last week's first leg, Villa dominated from the first whistle, overwhelming a Forest side unable to cope with their relentless attack. Captain John McGinn sealed win with 2 second-half goals after Oli Watkins and Emiliano Buendia put Villa 2-0 ahead. In the final on May the 20th, Villa will face Bundesliga side Freiburg, who edged Braga 4-3 on aggregates in Istanbul. Tensions boiled over at Real Madrid training on Thursday as midfielders Federico Valverde and Aurelien Tchouameni were involved in a physical altercation, leaving Valverde with a cut above his eyebrow that required stitches. The pair had already clashed during Wednesday's session when teammates stepped in to prevent escalation, and the disagreement reportedly continued in the dressing room. Thursday's tense training saw the situation flare with the two exchanging blows. Valverde was taken to a nearby hospital for treatment. The incident comes days before Sunday's Clásico against Barcelona, where a draw would hand Barca the La Liga title, but both players could face squad exclusion. Switching to the World Team Table Tennis Championship finals, the China women's team stormed into the semi-finals with a commanding 3-0 victory over South Korea, following an earlier 3-0 win against the same opponent in the game's group stage. One-man Yu set the tone with a stunning performance against Shi Yubin, easing to victory. Sun Yingsha faced a tough challenge from Kim Na-yeon. After taking the first set 11-7, Sun dropped next to 11-7, 11-7, and fell behind 4-1 in the fourth. But she unleashed a blistering comeback, winning 10 consecutive points to force a decisive fifth set. Kim narrowed the gap from 9-5 to 10-9, yet Sun held her nerve to clinch the match 11-9.
I think I was not that far away from losing this time. I feel that I can learn a lot from this match. Things will get harder and harder in the coming days, so I need to look back at this match and see what I did right and what I did wrong. I think it was a good result, no matter what. So I just need to think about the process and try to learn from it.
The victory was sealed by Wang Yidi, who overcame Park Ga-hyun. China will now face either France or Romania in the semi-finals. At the WTA Italian Open, Zheng Qinwen cruised past Spain's Cristina Busca in straight sets to reach the third round. In their first ever meeting, Zheng grabbed an early break in the opening set, but Busca back in at 5-4. Down 4-1 in the tiebreak, the Chinese star fought back to take it 7-6. The second set saw Zheng save 3 break points from 40 love down, then capitalize on the Busca double fault, the break in the fourth game, and close out 6-2. She will face either Elena Gabriela Ruiz or Elena Ostapenko next.
Thank you very much. That was Yang Guang with sports. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in culture and entertainment, pop superstar Shakira has unveiled the official song for the World Cup.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys. Now it's 52 minutes past the hour, turning to culture and entertainment. May the 8th marks World Smile Day, a special global celebration of one of the simplest yet most powerful human expressions. Founded in 1948 by the World Mental Health Organization, the day reminds us how a single smile can spark joy, connection, and positivity for ourselves and everyone around us. Take a moment to share a smile. It's a small gesture with a surprisingly big impact. Colombian pop superstar Shakira has unveiled the official song for the World Cup. The 49-year-old teased her track Die Die Italian for Come On Come On as the anthem for this summer's tournament in Canada, the US, and Mexico. Sung in English and Spanish, the song also features Nigerian star Burna Boy.
This marks Shakira's fourth FIFA musical collaboration. She previously performed Hips Don't Lie at the 2006 finals, Waka Waka in 2010, and La 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 at the 2014 closing ceremony in Rio. A new exhibition at the Santos Coffee Museum in Brazil is brewing up a story of growing cultural and economic ties between the South American country and China, seeing through the rich history of coffee. Paulo Cabral has more.
A Chinese dragon made from coffee cups quickly became the main attraction at this new exhibition at the Santos Coffee Museum, a show called The Black Goat and the Dragon. It explores a growing connection between Brazil and China through coffee, one of Brazil's most important exports and a drink that is quickly gaining popularity among Chinese consumers. Here, coffee is presented not only as a commodity, but also as culture.
Coffee is one of the main exports we have in Brazil, so being able to show it in a completely different way, and the relationship it creates with another country on the other side of the world with a completely different culture from ours, is extremely rewarding.
I'm loving it. It's very beautiful. There are so many details in each.
Artist Camila Arruda created the 15 works on display. Paintings, sculptures, installations and videos. She says the idea came after her first visit to China in 2019, when she was struck by the number of coffee shops in a country traditionally associated with tea.
This first part of the exhibition is dedicated to that, to the spiral way of thinking in Chinese culture and to the Chinese cosmology as well. The second part, it presents coffee as a symbol in China. So it actually makes a comparison of the symbolism of coffee in Brazil and the symbolism of coffee in China. And then at the final part of this exhibition introduces the public to the dream of Chinese people, of dream of leading technology, they don't want to be producing what the world will consume now. They want to, they want to be the leaders.
The Deputy Consul General of China in São Paulo was among the guests at the opening.
Today, the Coffee Museum is hosting the exhibition of Black Gold and Dragon. Let the dragon of the East and the black gold of Brazil meet across oceans and distance. I believe this will provide the people of Brazil with a platform to understand Chinese culture and promote the friendship between the two countries.
The show is open for visitors and runs until September, bringing together two symbols with deep roots, Brazil's coffee and China's dragon, at a moment when trade, culture and people-to-people exchanges between the two countries continue to grow.
That was Paulo Cabral reporting. Now it's 57 minutes past the hour. Checking the forecast for the day. Beijing will be cloudy with a low of 14 and a high of 28 on Saturday. Shanghai will be overcast tonight and tomorrow with a low of 14 and a high of 24. Chongqing will see light rain with a low of 19 tomorrow, cloudy with a high of 23. Nanchang will be overcast with a low of 16 tonight, tomorrow cloudy with a high of 22. Lhasa will see light rain with a low of 4 tonight, then overcast and 13. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad is down to 22 this evening. Saturday will be cloudy with a high of 37. Vientiane will see moderate rain through tomorrow. The low is 23 and it's up to 28. Phnom Penh will see light rain tonight and tomorrow with a low of 26 and a high of 35. In Africa, Nairobi will see moderate rain with a high of 23 on Saturday. Kampala will see light rain with a low of 19 overnight. Tomorrow, moderate rain with a high of 25. That's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour Making News Today. Iran and the United States have exchanged fire, but the US president says their ceasefire still holds. The French Senate has approved a draft law to return illicitly acquired cultural property a day after the National Assembly passed a bill. On behalf of the staff, this is Tianlu in the Chinese capital, hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
Find the Beijing Hour at precisely 6 p.m. Beijing time. We meet you on podcast and on air every weekday. The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
He can't live without the Yellow River in his eyes.
The Yellow River is so noble and elegant.
Both my grandpa and dad made a living from the river.
Would you like to move away from the Yellow River?
哎呀，不愿意。I don't think I will. I love it so much.
The Yellow River, the second longest river in China, is regarded as a shaping force in the history, economy and culture of northern China. Today, about 100 million people live within its water basin, making up nearly 9% of the country's population. How is climate change felt at its headwaters, and what are the locals doing to cope with it? What are the descendants of the boatmen doing? What has kept some people from leaving their home village by the river, and what has drawn others back? Could the fading fishing community revive in the time of digital transformation? From 2021 to 2024, our reporters visited the upper, middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, talked to the herders, farmers, boatmen, fishermen and eco-activists who share a close bond with the river, and present their stories in pictures, podcasts and videos, all in our 12-part series, The Yellow River Mosaic, available only on CGTN Radio.